Alright, guys, so October is finally here. Halloween is just around the corner. Let's get into some horror movies. Now, there are two Michael Myers that I can really think of at this point. One of them is a psychopathic lunatic who escaped a mental institution to be in one of the biggest horror movies ever made, and the other one was in Halloween. If you guys did not get that joke, then clearly you have not seen the live action Cat in the Hat movie, which, by the way, good job for you guys if you haven't seen it. That movie is just completely awful. Anyway, so Halloween came out in the 1970s and it started a genre. It started the slasher horror movie genre. You know, the genre where teenagers go off in the middle of nowhere or to certain locations to either do drugs, have sex, have fun, all that type of stuff, and then they all get killed off one by a serial killer or a monster. Halloween was the one that started the whole thing. And in my mind, Halloween was the one that definitely did it the best. Because not only was the villain of this movie absolutely amazing, but also the side characters as well were terrific for the most part. The best one I got to say would be Jamie Lee Curtis. This is one of Jamie Lee Curtis's first movies. It's the movie that made her a star, and she does an absolutely great job as the so-called virgin of the whole group. She always sticks with the rules. She always does things responsibly, especially since she's a babysitter in this movie, but she wants to go off and do other things. She wants to be just like her friends. She wants to go out and hang out with guys because why not? That's her needs and wishes, and that definitely hits the teenage vibe that you want to see, especially when about a movie that's about a teenager. Anyway, Michael Myers escapes a mental institution, gets back to the small town, wears the most terrifying Captain Kirk mask I've ever seen in my life, and this dude is got to be one of the best villains in horror movies that I have seen in a long time. I mean, he has that whole stalker syndrome feeling about him that always gets me. You know how there's somebody looking through your window and you don't really know about it, or you're being spied on, or you're being followed by somebody. He's every one of those things, and John Carpenter does a really good job in putting that in the movie. Like, for example, Jamie Lee Curtis is in a car, and then Michael Myers' car is right behind her. You can see it the whole time. Or she's walking on a sidewalk with a friend. She looks up, and there's Michael Myers standing behind a bush, just like 10, 20 feet away from her. And it just has that stalker feeling to it that always gets under your skin. There's even a point in this movie where she gets absolutely so terrified that when the telephone rings, she jumps out of her skin. Yeah, I would be terrified too in this situation. Now, usually when it comes to slasher horror movies, the teenager would know that the serial killer is there and they would always do stupid things. Like, for example, in one in particular, they know that they're being stalked by a serial killer, but instead of leaving the place or jumping into the car and driving away from here, they decide to stick around, search for clues, like they're in a Resident Evil movie or a Resident Evil video game or whatever. But anyway, whenever Michael Myers shows up, he definitely shows up with a real scare. Like, for example, you know how in horror movies they would have a jump scare, somebody jumps out and makes you jump out of your skin and all such? That's not real horror. And John Carpenter definitely knew that. John Carpenter knew that in order to get real horror into someone's skin is to is for people to not notice him at first, and when they finally do, they get scared. Like, for example, when Jamie Lee Curtis is tucked up against this door and there is absolute blackness in the room right behind her. Michael Myers' face just shows up out of the dark, and when I finally noticed it, I jumped out of my skin. I did not see it coming. But also, for a lot of teenagers in this movie, they had no idea that they were being stalked. Like, they're off doing their certain thing. One's just trying to get into a car, the other two are trying to fool around in the bedroom and everything. They do not know that a serial killer is there, so I don't see them doing a whole lot of stupid stuff. And that's the beauty of John Carpenter movies. John Carpenter has got to be one of the best horror movie directors out there, even better than James Wan in my mind. Yes, I said it. Shut up. He directed movies like Halloween, The Fog, and The Thing. Those are some of my favorite horror movies, and he does know how to do it correctly, especially on a very low budget. Yeah, for how much this movie cost to make it, I noticed this, and it was not a whole lot, and that completely surprised me. But John Carpenter is one of those guys that was like, I do not care about the budget, I just want the talent involved, and the talent definitely shows in the movie Halloween. So I gotta say, Halloween is definitely one of the best horror movies that I've ever seen. I watch it every single year when it comes to Halloween, and it is definitely legendary. So guys, Halloween. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Whatever you thought, comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.